Green Cooling scores with the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League Show.
Yes, hello and welcome to yet another edition of the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League Show. I'm Steve Beach, and alongside me always is the one and only Dave Parkinson. How you doing, Dave?
One and only? You could have just called me Chesney Hawks. I'm doing great, Steve. Another cracking weekend of Community Rugby League to dive into. Big results, fiery and fierce rivalries, and as always, no shortage of drama.
No, absolutely, Dave. We've got some top tier action to break down this week. Results across all of the 4 divisions, and plenty of talking points from around that and everything else.
We've also got a couple of good interviews as well, if I do say so myself, because I conducted them. We'll be hearing from Martin Ellis. He's the assistant coach of Wigan St Pat's after their impressive win at the weekend. Loads of insight from him about the squad shaping up and the goals going forward.
Yeah, that's a cracking interview with Martin. And also Dave chatted with Peter Smith from Kells. Some really honest words from the coach after a tough battle this weekend. Although always good to get that perspective straight from the dressing room.
Yeah, I've got to pay some real credit here to Peter, because straight after the game finished, he was over wanting a chat, so maybe he wanted it off his chest straight away, but you don't get that sort of access.
You don't. So
I think that was brilliant, you know. And what I loved as well is that his side got beat, and he was still willing to come over and give a real honest and forefront interviews. Not everybody this season has done that.
No, but that's enough about Adrian Lamb.
We've got plenty of other stories to cover too. Promotion battles, relegation scraps, and some standout individual performances that we'll be highlighting later on.
Yeah, so whether you were pitch side this weekend or if you're catching up from home, stick with us as we unpack it all here on 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League Show, where the league lives on.
That's another.
Do you like that?
That's another tagline for us.
It is.
Where the league lives on. Well, I mean, it's nearly 40 years old now, this league, by the way.
It certainly is. Is it next year?
Next year, yeah. And you might be able to hear some background noise. Now, it's not a case of us going out to Crossfields, although that could be a future destination.
Could be.
It's not a case of us, setting up camp outside Woolston, or Thatto, or Leigh Miners, or even Leigh East. We're not even in Cumbria.
No.
We're in your back garden again.
We are. We're in my back garden. And,
Spring watch.
Spring watch, I tell you.
Summer watch now, actually.
And you know what, ironically, speaking of spring watch, Michaela Strachan, who's not far down the road from here, she used to be on Mr. Smith's with Peter Waterman.
She did. Mm-hmm. She did. I remember going to Mr. Smith's a couple of times. She was never there, but I remember going to Mr. Smith. Right, anyway, enough of those. I'm not going to get myself in trouble by saying about some drunken tale or two, but we will instead look back over, as we said, that what was quite a pivotal weekend as far as results were concerned. You know what, let's start with the Premier Division. So full roundup here, by the way, folks. So leaders Siddal, who had beaten Mayfield 36-22 in Halifax, completed the double with a 36-12 verdict in Rochdale. The visitors, who were only 8 points to 6 ahead at the break, Ewaniggs having converted Deacon Conley's try in response to a Harvey Williams touchdown and 2 Jamie Greenwood goals, rode the loss of Don Booth, who was sin-binned on 37 minutes for a high tackle. But Rochdale were unable to do the same after Cole Connolly was yellow carded on 51 minutes for a high tackle. Daniel Rushworth and Leo Dow powered over before his return, and Henry Turner and Sam Walsh then dotted down in a blistering 15-minute spell. Greenwood added each goal, although Deacon Conley crossed again for Mayfield. Higgs once more improving. Siddal had the last word with Walsh's second try, so it finished the 36 points to 12. Then second placed West Hull, they toppled playoff aspirants Thatto Heath Crusaders, who had only 15 players, by 16 points to 10. I saw a little bit on social media about this, how they were very fulsome of the praise with the people that had gone from Thatto Heath. And there was, but you learn a lot about your side. But yeah, we're at that
struggling
stage
away
where
from home now.
Struggling away from home.
Yeah, the blistering at home.
Crusaders lost 22 points to 18 in St Helens, and they opened and closed the scoring with tries from Alex Speakman and James Holroyd, the second of which Sean Lester improved. Between times, however, West controlled the exchanges, tries in a 5-minute spell before the break by Jack Watts and Ryan Wilson, both of which were improved by Jack Potter, helped to establish a 12 points to 8 interval lead, 12 points to 4 interval lead, which was extended to 12 points when Jack Lazenby swept over as the contest entered the final quarter, but ultimately it finished 16 points to 12 in favour of West Hull. Wath Brow Hornets, they travelled over to Bradford seeking a double over West Bowling, who had been edged 22 points to 16 in Cumbria. The expected close encounter didn't really happen though. Hornets, who were targeting a 4th win on the trot, were scuttled 48-4, and their only try came early in the final quarter from Luke Davison, when Wests were already 36 points to 0 ahead. Logan Simpson, Chris Cullymore and Elliot Cousins had crossed in the first half, with Cullymore, Harry Williams and Josh Lynham racing in before the hour mark. And after that score from Davison, Bowling closed in style with tries from Charlie Barrett and Alex Stevenson, while Williams completed 8 from 8 from the boot. Brilliant.
That's absolutely superb.
Waterhead Warriors, well, they're the team that benefited. They now moved above Wath Brow, courtesy of a 34 points to 18 win over what has been a rising Hunslet ARLFC side. Over what has been a rising Hunslet ARLFC side. It would have been good had they beaten the proper one, wouldn't it? They were bidding to join the Oldham outfit in 5th spot. The Warriors were 12-0 ahead as the interval approached, thanks to tries from Adam Robinson and Tim Bridge, plus a penalty and a conversion from Keegan Brennan. The visitors' Ryan Morley was then sin-binned just before half-time for a shoulder charge, and by the time he returned, Waterhead had doubled their lead, thanks to improved touchdowns from Matty Holland and Brennan. Hunslet did mount a challenge when Dylan Thornton and Joe Abson nipped over before the hour mark, Jordan Gale converting both, but Waterhead restored control through tries from Robinson his second and Scott Parnaby, with Brennan kicking his 5th goal, and that was more than enough to exact retribution for an earlier defeat in the season. York Acorn ended a 4-match losing run and eased above Lock Lane, who have now gone 4 games without a win and find themselves in the relegation zone. Acorn's 24-6 win marks what could be a vital double following a 22-10 success in Castleford. I saw that other game, and that was a cracking game a few months ago now. But victory was harder earned than that 24 points to 6 scoreline suggests. Jack Green scored the only try of the first half after 10 minutes, and an Ant Chilton penalty 6 minutes from the restart established a 6-0 advantage. Chilton then converted a Jack Stewart touchdown, only for Lane to reduce the deficit to 12-6 when Danny Holmes popped over on the hour and Nathan Fozzard added the extras. But Acorn eased home with tries in the last 11 minutes for Eddie Prescott and Stewart with his second, Chilton improving both, and that led to the 24 points to 6 win. Dewsbury Moor, meanwhile, they leapfrogged above Leigh Miners Rangers off the foot of the table, gaining revenge for an earlier 16-8 defeat at Twist Lane and winning 36-0 in the process. Andy Philbin impressed for the 16-man visitors, but the Maroons, they were 14-0 ahead at the break thanks to tries by Felix Ellis, George Woodcock and Louis Walker, the latter of which landed a goal. Will Clarkson bagged a brace in the second period, with James Sam and Aaron James also crossing. Woodcock got all 3 conversions in that second half, and it finished 36 points to 0. Outstanding result. Yeah,
that's a big win for on 2 fronts. One, obviously it moves them up above Leigh, but got to say, it's got to give them some confidence, massive confidence, that scoring so many points and defensively being absolutely sort of watertight.
Yeah, they've not been going down by as many points as well in recent weeks, and I have the feeling that when they won at Thatto a few weeks ago, that's really lifted their confidence levels, and I think that they can look forward to these last few games with a bit more confidence. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're some way behind as far as the league table goes at the moment. So if we look at that, Dewsbury Moor Maroons in 11th with 4 points. The next team, Lot Lane, with 12, and I mentioned about them. Basically there's Lot Lane, Rochdale Mayfield on 12 points, and then you've only got 2 points between them, York Acorn, Hunslet and Thatto Heath Crusaders.
We say it every season.
This is amazing. There's a real chase for who gets in the top 6, but there's going to be a real scramble for who escapes the drop.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's a catch-22. If you put a couple of wins together, like we say, you're there. Okay, if you put the wins together to get away from relegation, suddenly you find that a couple of wins to get you away from relegation, suddenly I've got you in the top 6 and you're looking for playoff places. It keeps the whole divisions alive, doesn't it? That sort, and makes every game then important. There's no I've been referred to in other competitions as dead rubbers. There's very, very few of those. I must admit.
Let's look at Division 1, shall we?
Division 1, well, I was over last Thursday. It was a Thursday night lights, or it was lights eventually. I was over to Ince Bridge, who were playing Oulton Raiders. If you remember, we'd been at St Jude's the week before they played, and they'd gone down to St Jude's. So I'd interviewed Jack Morrison, captain, after the game there, and he said it was good to obviously to get back on the bike like and play Oulton Raiders, but they had to be mindful of him, and that was correct, because Ince Bridge though powered to a 36 points to 14 win over a determined Oulton Raiders side in a fiercely contested National Conference League Division 1 battle under the midweek lights. While the scoreline may suggest a comfortable win, Oulton pushed their horse throughout and produced a commendable display given the tough Thursday night travel from Yorkshire. The home side made the most of the physical advantage early on, particularly through towering winger Callum Hughes. Hughes opened the scoring in the 10th and 18th minutes, with both finished showcasing his height and his strength in one-on-one situations. He bagged a third on the 33rd minute, taking a pinpoint ball out wide and crashing over, giving Hints a commanding early lead. With Mason Fillingham converting 2 of the 3 first half tries, Hints held a 16-0 advantage. However, Oulton it back through Robbie Powell on 34 minutes to make it 16-4 at the break. Oulton started the second half rightly and were rewarded with a try from Costello on the 50-minute mark, bringing the score to 16 points to 8 and hinting at a possible comeback. But Ince responded instantly. Peter Valentine crossed just 2 minutes later, followed quickly by TJ Boyd, and a 4 from Hughes on 58 minutes. The final Ince try came from Scott Finney on 66 minutes, while Fillingham slotted 2 second half conversions to finish with 4 goals from 7 attempts. Robbie Powell added his second for Oulton in 69 minutes, and Harvey Stevens converted 1 to complete the scoring. Captain Jack Morrison delivered a standout performance in the middle, earning player of the match honours for his leadership and defensive steel. Although Ince were deserved winners, Oulton's physicality and commitment, especially after travelling midweek, earned them respect across the pitch. And Ince Rosebridge tries came from Callum Hughes 4, Peter Valentine, TJ Boyd and Scott Finney, and Mason Fillingham was on hand with 4 goals. Oulton Raiders tries 2 for Robbie Powell and 1 for Charlie Costello, with Harvey Stevens on hand to slot 1 over for Oulton Raiders. And it's got to be saying, I mean, that scoreline looks as though it was an easy ride there for this, but it wasn't at all. I've got to give Oulton, they were really, really competitive.
Again, similar to what we mentioned about Dewsbury Moor before, they're starting to realise that they can still compete with the teams that are in this division. And again, it points to a better path ahead potentially for the second half of the season. I don't know whether they're leaving the run a little bit late though, because I mean they have,
possibly.
There's 3 clubs that are so far adrift of the rest, to be fair, that it is.
Yeah,
the cart behind the big engine, basically.
But it's got to be said that they look a young side, but they're certainly up for it, and there were some really, really good players. Stevens stood out for me. He was I think he was either loose or second row, but he was really, really in amongst it. Yeah. One thing though that saddened me from the actual day, we were in the fortunate position of having a referee and two touch judges, young touch judges.
I mean, that can be quite rare at times within the National Conference League.
But a couple of things happened, and I've mentioned this before about obviously from a touchline point of view, some of the crowd can get a bit abusive is not the word, harassing and sort of confrontational, and can be a bit intimidating, and both touch judges were on the younger side, and give them the due, they were sort of as good as they are for that age at the end of the day. They're not been doing it for years, you could tell that, but they were fair for both sides. Don't get me wrong, it looked as times where there were errors, but there was nothing glaring in the sense that it was doing it on purpose or anything like that. And they were the same for both sides, they were equal for both sides, much the same as the referee. The only problem was, and I mentioned this in the past, is one of the touch judges started sort of in conversation or answering some of the sort of things that were directed at them from the touchline,
rather than ignoring it.
Yeah. So consequently,
they're just only human, though. Having said this, and if you are going to get some stick, then you're justified to give a little bit back, aren't you? Surely, you're justified to sort of like mention or try and put one or two things right.
You're justified, but I feel it just adds fuel to the fire, and you get even more then.
Yeah.
So you end up beating yourself with a stick that you've created or helped create to a certain extent. Don't get me wrong, it's wrong what's happening or what did happen to them, and the intimidation was wrong. The other one who came over when the halves changed just took no notice. He was getting a similar sort of abuse, for want of a better word, and intimidation, but he took no notice. I mean, I would suggest...
Can I say something here, though, Steve? And this will be, as well, that with some of the stick, let's call it that touch judges, referees get, if you directed that at a player, we'd be hearing far more about it.
Yep. Totally
because clubs would go ape about it.
Yep,
let's be honest. So if you're not going to do that to one of your players, why do it to a match official?
Well, didn't this happen a couple of weeks ago? And there was a video that went viral on TikTok and YouTube about I think it was an under-14s match.
And the woman going along the touchline and sort of having a right go at the
lad who was
kicker.
Kicking the goal. And like you're saying, it's that sort of situation that that went viral. I saw Australian TV looking at that and saying, look at these parents doing this, and you could argue that these lads who were on the touchline weren't much older than those lads who were taking the goal kicks, etc. And one thing I would suggest is that, from a referee's point of view, obviously it would be wise if especially if they had young touch judges, so they said, look, if you're going to you probably get stick from the crowd. As much as it's wrong, don't get involved. Just if there's any problems, come to me. I'm the match officiator, and I will sort things out. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was no foul language or anything like that. It was just sort of an intimidating situation. And if that was sort of my son who was having to do that, I would think, hang on, you're going to carry on doing that, doing that job. And obviously enjoy doing it, but there was just no need for it. Just no need for it whatsoever. And I must admit, the guys who were dishing it out, for starters, it's not as if they were boozed up or anything. So they knew what they were doing. They were, a lot of the more older variety around my sort of age. So they should have known it even better and it was it was distasteful, I must admit. It left a nasty taste in my mouth.
That's not something that we see, going on into the rest of the season, because that's it's out of order. That.
Yeah,
and these clubs, they're the first ones to complain when they don't get touch judges.
Yeah,
don't harangue your touch judge. If you've got a touch judge, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I would throw another question: could any of those blokes do any better, or would they be going up and down the touchline a couple of times and then needing to step off and take some heart attack medicine or something like that?
What it happened for me, what it did for me was that, don't get me wrong, they would argue, and they would say, I wasn't abusing him. But it's what you class. I bet in what context.
I bet as well that these are the same sort of people that you would go to. I'm allowed an opinion.
Yeah.
I'm allowed an opinion. Yeah. Not if you're haranguing somebody, you're not allowed an opinion. There's different ways of putting yourself across. This has wound me up, to be honest. I'm on my high horse now. This is not good. I need the blood pressure tablets.
No, but it's obviously we've discussed this type of thing.
Yeah, it isn't on. It's not on.
And obviously we've spoke to what they call it in the past. His son's a referee, and he's a touch judge. Innes Arnold. We spoke to him in the past, and he always says, when I've gone to watch my son, sort of not play rugby. Obviously, he's been refereeing or doing the touch judge, and he's got this sort of stick. He's turned around and said, "How would you like me to speak to your son? Call your son for doing a knock on, and or dropping the ball. How would you like me to give your son that stick?" No, they wouldn't like it, and it would be wrong, and it's just as wrong at the end of the day. The other thing that was levelled was, you're being paid for it. But, he's getting expenses, or they get expenses. They've gone there on a Thursday night to help put a game on. And it just left it. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't take anything away from the match. It was a great match. It just left that slightly bitter taste in my mouth, because I thought, there's no need for it.
And no wonder. Wonder. On a slightly more positive note, I do want to ask you a little bit more. So you mentioned there in that match report about Callum Hughes back in the side, scores 4 tries. That is now 15 tries that he scored this season at National Conference League level in 9 games.
Yeah,
the fella's a try scoring freak of nature, isn't he?
They played to his strength, and we know he's a tall, very tall lad.
He's about 6'4", isn't he?
Yeah,
it's huge. Yeah.
And and it sounds as though that's his only asset. It's not. He's quick. He's powerful. He knows how to spin. He's clever. You know what I mean? He's a smart rugby player as well, and he played to that strength. And if that's the one of the tools you've got in your armoury as a rugby team, you're going to use it, aren't you?
Definitely. Yeah. Moving on in Division 1, and Wigan St Jude's went top of the league, courtesy of a 23-16 victory against Shawcross Sharks. It was a gritty performance, and Danny Cassidy led the way with 2 tries, 3 goals and a drop goal, supported by other tries from Connor Parkinson and Rhys Matthews. Shawcross stayed in the hunt with tries from Brad Wakenshaw, Tennyson Eagle and Evan Stevenson, 2 of which were converted by Lewis Heckford, but ultimately Wigan St Jude's won through. I just want to mention about Cassidy while we're on the stats and stuff. So you'll like this, because you're number 1 of his fan club.
Well, I'm up for his leader, president of his fan club, apparently.
And I think I'm number 2 of his fan club, to be fair. So Danny is one of these guys that he's a really nice guy, good player, clever player. And when he plays with a smile on his face,
he's beautiful to watch.
He's great to watch. Yeah. He has now scored, get this, in 12 games this season, 10 tries, 38 goals, 2 drop goals. He's picked up in the scoring charts, similar to how he was doing last season when he ran away at the top of that.
And you know what? I remember last season when he was up for the awards, and I said I think he should have got it for that division, and he said, and I think Connor Parkinson won, if I'm not wrong. And
Connor scored 28 tries that season.
Well, that's what he said. He said, no, I said, Connor's way better than me. And that's exactly the type of guy he is. That he, you know, so easy to give credit to somebody else.
Well, while you've mentioned our Connor, he scored 11 tries in 12 games as well, so he's taken to that step up from Division 2. I mean, this is a player that up until this season, and other than playing for England Community Lions in Australia, hadn't played at this level of rugby before. And he's taken to it like a duck to water as well.
He certainly has. And they're a good combination together because they work really, really well. They know where each other is, when they're attacking and the ball's going across the line. Parkinson coming into that line, Cassidy knows where he is 9 times out of 10. Even without looking, he knows he's there. So that doesn't surprise me. I'm sure if we could look into what assists Connor Parkinson got for them tries, I bet a lot of them come from Cassidy.
I've not got those stats.
I know, but I'm sure it is.
Don't go giving me additional work to do here, Steve. Assists on the National Conference League. Alan Smith.
Hang on.
Do you think you can sort that for us?
It's hard enough getting team sheets back. You don't want to shift. Right, moving on. Youth. Well, another team that we say are the dark horses and are up against, sort of pushing everybody everywhere. Well, they were up against Stanley, and Stanley actually boosted their playoff aspirations with a 30-12 win away at Youth. The visitors shot to a 12-0 lead through tries from Luke Townend and Connor Aveyard before the horse levelled via Adam Dent and Harrison Briggs, both converted by Callum Rutland. Stanley edged ahead at the break with the second from Townend, then pulled clear with further tries from Nathan Stone and Josh Phillips. Tom Flannery was flawless with the boot, converting all 5 attempts. So Youth tries came from Dent and Briggs, with goals 2 from Rutland. For Stanley, it was 2 tries for Townend, Aveyard, Stone and Phillips, and 5 goals for Flannery.
Absolutely outstanding. That
is
really, really big win that for Stanley. Very impressive. Keeps them well in touch with, certainly the promotion aspirations. They're only 2 points behind Heworth now in the league, and it's really warming up again, isn't it? Division 1 it always delivers. Division 1 again, always delivers.
Well, like I said, with the dark horses, I think that tag's now been taken over by Stanley to a certain degree, because they've sort of just gone about the business quietly, haven't they? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not putting Youth out of anything at all, because they're still there, but Stanley are back there well in the mix, aren't they?
Now at the weekend I was over at Wigan St Pat's, so they were hosting Kells. It was a featured game on Radio Cumbria Sport, and tell you what, I really enjoyed this as well. Was made to feel really welcome once again by Wigan St Pat's. Had the pleasure of being undercover.
Undercover,
yeah,
St Pat's?
Yeah,
I don't know.
They put a gazebo up, and I was able to.
Isn't that called something different in Wigan? I'm sure it is.
Pie topper. I don't know really, but no, they were calling it gazebo.
A gazebo, right?
They were calling it a gazebo, but
yep.
Fantastic host again.
I actually saw it on some of their social media. It is very, very nice.
Yeah, it was good.
I was impressed with it. Very impressed.
It was good, and it turned out to be a really good performance as well from Wigan St Pat's. They got underway in the first couple of minutes, scoring a try from a scrum move, and the ball went through 3 pairs of hands out to the right wing, and it was Jack Sproat. We've seen him before,
that's right,
and he's got a bit of pace, hasn't he? He's got a bit of pace, bit of know-how, and he sped over from about 40 metres, but it was great passing to get to that position and work a bit of an overlap. Brad Smith added the first of 4 goals, but then just a couple of minutes later, Kells are putting pressure on the line and again come up with a similar sort of play, although it was much closer to the line, but similar sort of passing movement out to their left wing, and it was Oscar Cook who went over for, I think that was his 5th try of the season. Ross Gameford added the extras, 6 points each, and I'm thinking, whoa, we've got a cracking game here, and that was how it remained. Both sides traded errors, they traded field position, they cancelled each other out largely until the 38th minute, when Logan Bradbury went in for a well-worked try, and it was only 10 points to 6 at half-time in favour of Wigan St Pat's. And then the second half, it was like they'd come out, they'd really heeded the words of the coaching staff there, and they scored 2 tries in pretty quick succession. So they scored after 4 minutes of the second half. Riley Dervan going in again. He's a young player that we've seen as well.
That's right, yeah.
Had impressed us, and it seems that since he played in the opening game of the season, he's been signed by Wigan. And dual registered back to Wigan St Pat's to aid his development. And again, just looking at his stats, Riley Dervan scoring that try, which was his 7th try in just 8 appearances. So, he's a young player who's got a ton of promise, Brad Smith added the extras to make it 16 points to 6, and it just felt even at that early stage that something else had clicked. And for me, there was the wind direction had changed as well, because in the first half, from where I was in the corner, the wind was blowing directly into the gazebo, across from the clubhouse side, coming right across the pitch. In the second half, the wind changed and was coming from the far end of the pitch, going lengthwise. And they've got a couple of good players of Wigan St Pat's who's got some know-how. So Deck O'Donnell played professionally for the likes of Workington, for Leigh, played for Ireland as well. He had a couple of great kicks which really pinned him back. And Brad Smith, who we've mentioned, he came up with a 40-20 and also was likewise, putting it in the right direction, in the right area of the field. And Wigan St Pat's didn't tire of defending that. I'm really putting pressure on with the defence. So 16-6 at that stage, 45 minutes into the new half, or 45 minutes into the game I should say. 49 minutes, Rhys Rowcroft, the young fullback who was with Wigan but has gone back to Wigan St Pat's, was actually a 9 originally, and they switched him to fullback. We had this conversation at the start of the season.
Right, I remember speaking to him, And
I tell you what, he absolutely flies in that position now. He again scored a cracking try. Smith converted, 22 points to 6. The game's just about done at that stage, by the way. And then about 5 minutes from the end of the game, they came up with a 5th try. Jonah Taylor, another young player pushing his way through. And this is what's impressive of this. So as well as having some experience in the likes of Brad Smith, who's been there, done it, won the ship for a number of years at Wigan St Pat's, they've also got youngsters now like Riley Dervan. They might not have him for long if he's only on dual reg from Wigan, but Rhys Rowcroft, decent player. Jonah Taylor looks a decent prospect, and I think just based on the number of young players that they do have, they all train together now. We'll hear from Martin Ellis in just a minute or two, but for me they're a very different animal. I was impressed with Wigan St Pat's because this was one of those games where it could have been a slip up and they ended up winning fairly comfortably on the scoreboard in the end by 28 points to 6.
Yeah, because to be honest, they were fully in the mix right at the beginning of the season. We had them up there with the 2 other Wigan clubs of being that they were going to be the 3, weren't they? And they've had a little bit of a wobble, but they're sort of getting the stuff back together again. The other thing is, you know what it's like, and we mention it time again. The coaches mention it when we speak to them. We know what it's like, sort of with holidays, festivals, stag do's, all those types of things. You can't always have, the best team that you want on the pitch at the time. Those who can do it are the ones who usually are, the successful ones. But I think, again, these are the sort of teams now. Wigan St Pat's were, if you're going to be playing Wigan St Pat's, you've got to be worried because they're sort of getting back to something like, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. For me, this is 2 sides that are probably chasing 6th in the division now. I think based on what else that I've seen within this competition and the way that we talk about it every single week, there's some good sides, isn't there, in Division 1 this year. But again, there's not that much difference between being 3rd in the division and sitting in 9th either, is there? When you look at that league table with the spread of the points.
Yeah, and you look at these 2 sides, though, if they are in that 6th place, these are 2 sides who could actually go on on the day, beat anybody.
I mean, Kells have shown it.
Yeah.
They went over to Introse Bridge a couple of weeks ago and turned them over, so you can't discount either of these clubs in fairness, and it's good to see. It was a good game. I did enjoy it. As I say, I just thought second half Wigan used the breeze advantage that they had and just seemed to have that bit more zip, probably provided from the younger players. In the end, won by 28.6. Right, let's get some reaction, shall we? So first of all, let us hear from the St Pat's assistant coach, Martin Ellis. This is our conversation. Always good to have a chat with Martin.
Okay, so I'm alongside Wigan St Pat's assistant coach Martin Ellis. Martin, good win that today, 26 points to 6 against Kells. Was it everything that you expected as a staff?
Yeah. I think we just we went into it good team out, good. We have an idea selecting the team this week, and then I thought we just defended really, really well in the first half. Bombed a bit of ball, but then come out strong second half.
Yeah, I mean, they had a few chances in that first half, didn't they? And a bit of possession at the wrong end of the field as far as you were concerned, but you yelled them out, and it's like that really affected their confidence in the game then.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and then we built a bit of confidence off the back of that. We've been a bit down over the last few weeks, but we built that confidence up on the back of the defending. We spoke about it at half time and just said they can't score here. We'll keep going. And that's what we built on.
We spoke a little bit off mic about how the wind varies here, doesn't it? Because in the first half I was on the other side of the pitch in the corner, and it was blowing into my face, and then in the second half it was kind of blowing across field, and certainly the likes of Deco O'Donnell, Brad Smith, they used it to perfection, didn't they?
Yeah, and then obviously Brad picking out that 40-20 to get us out of there, and it was just, we turned it, we use it to our advantage, as Ruddy calls it, our Hollywood end, and that's where we play our rugby.
Tell us a little bit about some of the younger players that were perhaps playing today. I'm thinking you had a second row that I'd not really seen before.
We threw Rowley Dervin on at back row late on in the game, who bit of a strange position for him. He doesn't play there a lot, plays more centre or full back, but stood up and played outstanding there and really stood up.
And as well, I thought it was one of those games where half-backs were able to step up and control.
Yeah, a bit obviously new combination today, Matty Ellis and Brad Smith, but both of them stood up, controlled the game, and I think it paid off in that second half. We just stuck to what we needed to do.
You mentioned about confidence. I suppose over the last few weeks it's been a bit hit and miss, has it, with regards to results? I was counting only one win in the last sort of 5 before this.
Yeah, we've been on the wrong end of a couple of them, and probably our own mistakes a couple of times, and we were lacking confidence, but we grew into the game today, and I think this win will give us that confidence going forward now.
Who is it that you play next time out?
We've got Eworth away and then Egremont, so 2 nice trips.
Well, that's where you'll find out a lot about your team, isn't it? I mean, Eworth themselves have been flying under the radar, haven't they? They've sort of gone, nobody's really talked about them, and yet they're perhaps performing the best of all those sides that came down from the Prem last year.
Yeah, they just keep grinding the results out, really, don't they, when you look at the table, and they just keep sticking in there and they seem to get a good home results and travel well, so yeah, it'd be a tough game.
It'd be remiss of me not to ask you about how you're enjoying your role down here. I know that you joined in pre-season.
Yeah, it's good, enjoying it, working really well with Ryan and obviously Ruddy there behind us, always there to support, and yeah, it's good, enjoying it. It's really good, positive, 18s, open age, all mixed, training wise and stuff, so all have a good team spirit throughout the club.
And to be fair as well, I mean, you can't go anywhere in the Northwest without mentioning Wigan St Pat's. It's like the first amateur club that a lot of people think of, to be fair, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And it's building again. You can see, obviously, the amount of people here today, Dave, and the committee's doing well, and the club's building all the time, and the youth is thriving. I think the 12s are in a final tomorrow, and it's fantastic, yeah.
As always, Martin, an absolute pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Always a pleasure.
Rugby League's secret weapon, Green Cooling, scores with the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League Show.
It's a good fella, isn't he, Martin?
Oh, he's
always a
great
good fella. Always got
great
time
bloke.
for you. He's just so chilled, and I know when we used to catch up with him when he was at Latchford, he was always at the centre of it. He'd be doing anything but coaching, would he? He'd be getting the pizzas sorted out. He'd be, chasing up other things, but I'd always got time to have a chat with you. Obviously he's carrying that on now at St Pat's.
Yeah, and I think as well that with the committee, and we've spoken about the newer committee that they've got in place as well. I just think there is so much that they can look forward to. And that's not taking anything away from anybody that was previously involved at all. I just feel that, for me, they're probably about 2 years away from being a top end club again. But I think once they can start getting some of these young players through and they're fully bought in, then we'll be talking about St Pat's for a few years, and we're talking about them as a force again.
I think by the sounds of what Martin was saying there, I think they've got a correct ethos there about the open age and the 18s training together. Yeah. Because, that gives you, a real good bond there, in the sense of each knows what the other players are like. I mean, even just visually knowing who a player is.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm sure a lot of the 18s know who the open age players are, but the other way around, it's not always the case, is it? So if they have to come up into the team, then if you've been there training and playing against them in training, then you've got some sort of idea, a little bit more confidence in that sort of respect as well. And also, that's what you want to achieve if you're going to be going up. You want to hit that open air side. You want to try and get a lot of the lads there, so don't want to get contracts with professional sides. So you've got to be able to slot into open age from time to time, haven't you, to help get your face in and around there as well.
Well, I think every community club will always say that they want their players to go as far as they can within the game, but also that they've always got a home to go to or to play at, because not everybody can be a professional player.
That's right.
We've seen, I talk quite often about scholarships and academy and about reserves and about how players can just end up getting churned out and then released like a sweaty sock, and then players, they just feel so down that they turn away from the game. And there's some of these lads that they're too good not to be playing. So for me, if you've got that sort of ethos where you're looking to aim at being the best that you can be, but there's always a home for you, then that is the best of both worlds, and that is what I'm sure every single community club, particularly within the National Conference League structure, is chasing and he's after. And I think we've got that. I think we've got that across all the clubs, in fairness. Right, for every winner there is also a loser, and this time round it was Kells, and I caught up with their head coach Peter Smith after the game. Very honest interview, this one. I like it.
Okay, so I'm alongside Kells boss Peter Smith. Peter, disappointing defeat today, I'd imagine, 26 points to 6. How did you see it?
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, obviously our second half was we just capitulated in the end up. I mean, we were just doing things that we wouldn't normally do, and really, I mean, that just knocked on from one thing to another towards the second half, and it was a poor second half, and I've just said to the lads there that it was a poor showing from us. We need to get back in there and start fighting for the points that we're going for.
You made a very spirited start to the game. I mean, ultimately went 6-0 behind early doors, but then the try that you scored was a quality one to get back in it. Yeah,
we said that some of our passing early on was down at the shins, down at the ankles, and maybe up at the shoulders. So that try that we got, that all the ball was right on the money there. So what we did was, it was a good score, but as I say, we didn't back it up from there. I just thought that it was a bit it was poor in the end. I mean, we'll have to find out what it was, but it was a poor showing in the second half. We just seemed to throw the towel in.
Really? Did you see that as that being the
Don't get me wrong, I mean, there was a lot of effort come from our lads, and you can put effort down to certain things, but as I say, you know, is it down to attitude? Is it down? Are they tired? You know, do we not sort our substitutions out on time and things like that? So, you know, we'll look at ourselves as well, and we'll look at the opposition and say what it is. But you know, it was there was a couple of poor tries that they got, and you know, I really wasn't happy because we've been quite, you know, strong in that area for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, because all the tries they scored second half were certainly from close range, weren't they?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, as a coach, you've just got to look at that and think, and you know, was his body position right? You know, did he get off the line? Was he low enough? You know, all them things you've got to take into account. But you know, we'll have a look at it again. And as I say, you know, nobody's lived or died by like this. But as I say, you know, it was disappointing on our part, and I've told the lads that as well.
You mentioned some of the effort. I thought, you know, certainly the Ennis brothers, you know, they're always thereabouts, aren't they? Right at the top of that sort of score. But again, you know, like I was impressed with the start from the Starkies as well. Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've got to have guys that can double up in different positions, you know, and Ryan can play hooker as well as half back, you know, loose forward, he can go in there. I mean, Daniel Starkey can play full back as well as on the wing, and you know, we've got Grant Gainford and Ross Gainford and they can rotate that as well, so it makes them, you know, a bit value to the team, if you know what I mean. But as I was saying, you know, we needed to have a collective effort from everybody there today, and you know, and it just wasn't there.
This division's wide open though, isn't it? Everybody's beating everybody. There's no one really that's starting to streak away with it now, especially after Ince Road Bridge losing a couple recently.
Yeah, we went Ince a couple of weeks ago, and we probably played the best that we've played all year. And you know, we played Stanley, which were a big team there last week. I mean, you know, under sort of poor conditions, but you know, you've got to master the conditions, and you've got to go with what you've got with at present. You know, there's no excuse for, you know, having people missing, even though it's like festival season and whatever. But you know, we've got what we've got, and you know, we'll try and make the best out of it.
How does that affect you as a club? You mentioned festival season. Obviously, we're right in the swing of it. We've got Oasis declaring, you know, I wonder how many lads you've had in Cardiff, for example, and that type of stuff.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, yeah, sometimes, you know, obviously with the guys at Sellafield working shifts and all that, you'll get some on back shift on a Tuesday, and you'll be there on the Thursday, you know, with them maybe being something else. So you've got to account for that. I mean, I work there anyway, so you know, that's what happens. But that's what you've got to do. I mean, you've got to say what you've got and you know, take it from there.
It's the first chance that I've got the opportunity to have a chat with you, Peter. You know, and certainly when you're looking at kind of like how the season's going, it's almost like win one, lose one, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, it's been, as you're saying, up and down there for us, and really we haven't. I mean, we lost a couple of lads. I don't use that as anyway as some kind of excuse, which is not, and it never will be. You know, but as I say, we've got to go with the lads. But some of the lads took the semi-pro ticket and went down there, which left us down on a couple of players. So we've had to build again and whatever. So, you know, it's probably a case of consolidating this year and seeing where we're at, you know, and building on, because, you know, when you go in that Premier League, you know, it's a tough ask, and, you know, and the teams that you're playing, you know, are good teams. You just make one mistake and, you know, that's game over.
I think that's something that I mentioned in the build-up actually to the game, you know, the fact that both of these sides are at that sort of stage, aren't they, where you're both trying to consolidate and you're both trying to push forward again.
Yeah, I was talking with Ryan before the game, and, you know, I was telling him, you know, we went to Ince a couple of weeks ago. He says, well, they were at Crossfields last week, and they put a poor show on. But I mean, they've turned it on today for him, you know, and our guys, you know, they haven't done it for me and themselves today. So, you know, you've just got to take into account and just saying what's what. But as I say, you know, it's an amateur game, and that's what you've got to look at.
Who've you got coming up next?
We've no game next week, but then we've got Hilton at home on I think it's on the 19th or something like that. So
is that a good thing, having no game next week? Well, on the back of that, would you prefer to be playing or having some sort of contact work?
Well, you want to put things right, and I think there's I think what we can do is put things right for this next one. I just said to the boys there, you know, we'll probably just train once, because next week we're just having no game, just having a light-hearted session and just doing, because, you know, it does become a bit of a trek. There's been training since December, so it's a big ask. But as I say, you know, they're only amateurs as well. Again, no excuse. But as I was saying, you know, we've got to get back on the horse as it is and do what we need to do.
Peter, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me right after the game.
No bother, Dave. Thank you, pal. Cheers.
Green Cooling keeps the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League show cool, even when tackles get heated.
I really appreciated such honesty from Peter there. I was quite surprised at a couple of his comments, you know, because I think there was one point where it was like, really? You didn't think you got the effort? You know,
I was surprised at that.
I didn't really know what to say, you know, like I was stumped nearly, you know, and then I kicked in again and asked another question. But you know what? I like both of these sides are in a similar sort of position. So both were in the Premier Division last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, and it's taken them some time to almost stabilise within this competition. Neither of them are that far away from the playoffs, and yet they've had to rebuild. So you heard Peter saying about the a couple of players that had gone into the professional ranks. But like you find with a lot of these Cumbrian teams, they're built on families.
Yeah.
So they had 3 lots of brothers there. You know, you all, and I just think when you get that sort of buy-in, then you're not that far away from things turning around anyway, you know. But they've been a little bit hit and miss at times this season, but I've come up with some tremendous wins as well. So, again, you wouldn't bet against them going on a little run, Kels.
Yeah, because some as I say, that you know, both of those can be dangerous on the day, can't they? Yeah.
So really appreciate speaking to both fellas. Yeah. Thank you ever so much for your time. And well, what else has happened in Division 1?
Well, Crossfields versus Egremont. Crossfields, if you remember, I interviewed Rob Campbell a few weeks ago, just after they played Shawcross Sharks, and weren't having a good time of it, but they've kept the survival hopes alive because they're now on their 3rd straight win.
Hang on. You're not taking credit for these 3 wins, are you? Yeah.
Full credit. After they defeated Egremont 30 points to 6. First half tries came from Kieran Thomas and Nathan Lyon, with Nathan Taylor adding a conversion and a penalty. Taylor then added a try of his own and improved further scores from Jamie Abram, Ben Steele, and Egremont's lone try came from Kieran Glenn, which was improved by Tom Horton. Crossfield's tries then were from Thomas, Lyon, Taylor, Abram and Steele. 3 goals from Taylor. Egremont Rangers, from them it was a try from Glenn, conversion by Horton. Got to say that they must be riding the crest of a wave at the moment.
9 games remaining this season.
Still going to be difficult.
Still is going to be difficult, but they're starting to pick up these wins.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, you know, 3 wins in succession, you can start looking up rather than looking down, can't you?
That's right. So still a little gap there, but they've got a good match coming up this week, which we'll discuss in a second or two.
Yeah. Let's move on though. And Oldham St Anne's, they're in a very, very similar sort of position to the likes of Kells and Wigan St Pat's, where they've won 1, lost 1, won 1, lost 1, scored loads of points. You know, they've got one of the best attacks within the division, but also one of the league's defence, which is why I'm very surprised when this result came through, because it was Oldham St Anne's 12, Woolston Rovers 6. So St Anne's completed the double over bottom side Woolston Rovers with a narrow 12-6 win. Rovers led early on through Andy Young's try converted by Ryan Brown, but St Anne's struck back via Jack Etchells just before the break, and Alex Ayres gave them the lead late on, with Matty Whitehead adding the conversion and sealing the game with a penalty. So it finished 12 points to 6 there. Oldham St Anne's tries through Jack Etchells and Alex Ayres, 2 goals from the boot of Matt Whitehead, and then Woolston Rovers, Andy Young scoring the try with Ryan Brown slotting over the goal.
So that's Division 1. Moving over onto Division 2. Dewsbury Celtic were taking on Driglington, and second place Dewsbury Celtic were made to work hard for their 28 points to 18 home victory over a spirited Driglington outfit, who had been convincingly beaten 46-0 in the reverse fixture earlier in the season. Driglington started strongly, opened the scoring in the 10th minute through Adam Griffiths. Dewsbury responded quickly with 2 tries in quick succession from Luke Johnson, giving them an 8-4 lead midway through the half. Jermaine Ekidir extended the advantage shortly before the half-hour mark, but the visitors struck back through Liam Wright, who notched a brace just before the interval. Mike Sanderson converted one to hand Dridlington a 14-12 lead at the break. Celtic reclaimed control just 1 minute into the second half when Tyler Sykes crossed for the first of his 2 tries. Charlie Heaton, a standout at fullback, added the conversion. Sykes then added his second on 65 minutes, and the win was sealed 5 minutes from time when Oliver Thornton darted over. Joel Sheldon pulled one back for Dridlington in the dying seconds, but it was too late. So tries for Celtic came from 2 from Johnson, Akida 2 from Sykes and Oliver Thornton, and goals from Charlie Heaton 2. For Dridlington it was Griffiths, 2 for Wright and 1 for Joe Sheldon, and goals from a goal from Mike Sanderson.
Elsewhere, East Leeds maintained their 100% record, but this was a hard-fought 28-10 away win at Clockface Miners. The league leaders stormed to a 24-0 advantage early in the second half through tries from AJ Wilson, Kieran Brannan, Billy Evans and Elliot Windley. Luke Littlewood converting all 4. Clock replied with 2 tries of their own from Danny Tatham. One was improved by Nathan Benson before Brennan sealed the game with his second try. The contest ended in fiery fashion. Red cards shown to Kenny Hughes and Littlewood, and sin binnings for Jack Graham and Brennan. Sounds like it all kicked off at the end there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And in fact, this won't work well on radio, but we do sort of like put a few notes together, don't we?
That's right, yeah.
And all over this match report, as far as I'm concerned, there's red dots and yellow dots. So maybe that was, a summary of kind of like how it ended with those cards being shown. So East Leeds tries scored from AJ Wilson, Kieran Brennan with 2, Billy Evans and Elliot Windley, 4 goals from the boot of Luke Littlewood. Clockface, who will probably see this as a moral victory of sorts because of the narrowness of the score.
Yeah, I agree.
Danny Taburn with 2 tries, 1 goal from the boot of Nathan Benson. It finished 28-10. So East Leeds still unbeaten at the top. Now, stat watch. 702 points scored in 14 games now for East Leeds. Still not with the best defence in the division though, which goes the way of Dewsbury Celtic, who've conceded 124 points in their 14 games. But Clockface still up there in 4th. And it's nice to see them. Nice to see them competing, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. As I say, they've had to sort of like just drop down and started to rejig, as it were, and they've been competitive in all the matches this season, and you can understand why they're up there. And on the same notice, we've got Pelt's Rex. They were up against Thornhill's Trojans in a similar sort of boat as Clockface Miners, as we were on about a couple of weeks ago when they met. But Pelks overturned a 14-12 half-time lead, and the sending off of Scott Simmons to crush Thornhill Trojans 58-18. Early tries from Tom Connick and Ryan Lockett were backed up by efforts from Warren Paradino, Ben O'Connell, another from Connick, a brace from Callum Derrick, plus George Hannon and Hayden Jones. Kieran Napper added 11 goals in a flawless kicking display. Thornhill had led through Casey Johnson and Bailey Lee and managed a late try and 3 goals from Sam Ratcliffe. So Piltrex tries, 2 from Tom Connick, 2 from Callum Derrick as well, 1 from Ryan Lockett, Palladino, O'Connell, Hannon and Jones, and 11 goals from Kieran Napper. Oh my goodness, that's an absolutely superb day there from a goal kicking point of view.
He's rolled back the clock there, hasn't he? That sounds like some of the match reports that we were reading a few years ago from Pilks, doesn't it?
For Thornhill Trojans, tries were Casey Johnson, Bailey Lee, Sam Ratcliffe, and goals, 3 goals from Sam Ratcliffe as well. Both Pilks possibly with that win have just edged above Clotface.
They have, yeah. They've got a slightly better point difference of plus 96 compared with Clotface's plus 73. Both locked on 19 points in the league table.
Can't wait for that reverse game up at Ruskin.
Have you marked it off in the diary?
Oh, it'll be down. It will be down. After that, watching them do the draw at Crawford Street, it was a cracker.
I've seen the tries which Callum Derrick scored and a couple of neat finishes out on the wing. I know he's played a bit of fullback as well.
I like it. I do like him. I've always said his balance off his feet is really, really good.
And he certainly showed it from quite close range, to get over. It's a couple of decent scores there. Talking about decent scores, this was a decent one as well. Skirler. So we know when we've looked at Skirler this season, at times their defence has resembled a sieve, hasn't it? They conceded that many points, and this was a high scoring game again, like you have come to almost expect. But Skirler, they survived a second half fight back to defeat Normanton Knights 30 points to 28, and they moved out of the relegation zone, so they're now sitting in 9th position. A dominant start saw tries from Josh Atkinson, Ross Kemp, not that one, Kellen Sharp and Tom Gray, while Kieran Smith added a try and 5 goals. Despite Kemp getting sin-binned, Normanton replied through Adam Biscombe, Taylor Carter, Alex Barker, Joe Crossland and Thomas Vanstan, with Charlie Barker adding 4 goals. But ultimately, then 5 goals from Kieran Smith proved the difference. So Skirler's tries, Josh Atkinson, Ross Kemp, Kellen Sharp, Tom Gray and Kieran Smith. 5 goals from the boot of Kieran Smith. Normanton Knights, Adam Biscombe, Taylor Carter, Alex Barker, Joe Crossland and Thomas Vanston with the tries. 4 goals from the boot of Charlie Barker. An outstanding result, that one for Skirler, 30 points to 28.
Meanwhile, Ensingham were up against Ellenborough Rangers, and they solidified their playoff position with a 26 points to 16 derby win over bottom side Ellenborough. They led 16-0 thanks to tries from Adam Williamson, Jordan Pritt and Miller Dalton, despite a sin bin for Luke Charlton. They held on after Ellenborough hit back with 4 unconverted tries through Rocco Ocasina, Matty Bell, Joe Appleby and Leon Akale. Dalton scored again late on, and Ben Pearce also crossed, with Williamson adding 3 goals. So tries for Ensingham were Williamson, Pritt, Miller Dalton with 2 and Pearce. Goals 3 for Adam Williamson. Ellenborough Rangers tries for Ocasina, Bell, Appleby and Akale.
Just shows as well, doesn't it, that Cumbrian Derby, you can chuck the form book out of the window. That was a really close game, to be fair, wasn't it? And fair play to Ensingham, sitting in 5th position, by the way. 9 wins from their 14 games this season, and like you mentioned, Steve, comfortably in that top 5 with 18 points. Hull Dockers were the other big winners this weekend.
Were they ever?
So they've picked up their 3rd win of the season, this coming against Barrow Island. So they continued the fight for survival, and this could be a crucial 16-10 win over a 14-man Barrow Island. I commented the other week, didn't I, because they travel with the Burr 13.
Yep.
So they're struggling when they go away from home. At home, it doesn't seem a problem of getting a full complement. Away from home, it's a different matter. It's like Leigh Miners, isn't it, when you're looking at
Thatto Heath as well. Thatto, similar sort of.
Ricky Robinson, Harvey Harrison and Kai Bartlett all crossed for tries, with Ollie Agar adding 2 goals. Seth Woodend and Carl McBain touchdown for Barrow, with Finn Dutton-Rusconi converting 1. So a reminder of those scorers for Hull Dockers. Famous win achieved through tries from Ricky Robinson, Harrison and Kai Bartlett. 2 goals from Ollie Agar. For Barrow Island, they responded with tries from Woodend and McBain, and that 1 goal from the boots of Finn Dutton-Rusconi. But it wasn't to be, and congratulations go to the Hull Dockers.
There you go, that's Division 2. Moving on over to Division 3, and what a game here. Mighton Warriors against Saddleworth Rangers. Mighton Warriors stunned league leaders Saddleworth with a disciplined 18 points to 4 win, bringing themselves within 2 points of a promotion place. Tyler Asher, Josh Brannigan and Nathan Slater crossed for tries, with Jack Sanderson converting all 3. Saddleworth's only response came from Joe Tahara. All points were scored in the first half as both sides shut down attacking opportunities in a scoreless second period. So tries for Mighton Warriors were Tyler Asher, Josh Brannigan and Nathan Slater, and the goals was 3 from Jack Sanderson. For Saddleworth, it was just a try from Joe Tiara.
Good win for Dissington this. They defeated Bentley 17 points to 14, completing a league double as well over Bentley with a thrilling 17 points to 14 win. Jaden Hewitt, Jack Penrice and Stephen Clark scored tries for the hosts, with Scott George converting one and adding a decisive drop goal after 72 minutes. Also slotting a penalty at the death to secure the win. Bentley had led through tries from Jack Jarmolinski, Ben Sykes and Jake Starbuck, with Kieran Lewis kicking 1 goal, but ultimately it wasn't to be, and Dissington come out on top. So again, they're pushing for a top 6 place now, Dissington. It's been a bit of a mixed sort of bag of results for them this season, but scoring through Hewer, Penrice and Clark, with those goals coming courtesy of Scott George, a goal, a drop goal and a penalty. And then for Bentley, Jarman Linsky, Sykes and Starbuck, the try scorers, Kieran Lewis with that goal.
Right, this next one, I've got to say, we've sort of kept an eye on Leigh East to a certain degree, haven't we? Because obviously we've been down there a couple of times commentating on the games, etc. Nice club, and we've sort of ummed and ahed of how they're doing, etc. But would you believe Leigh East continued their winning streak with a 4th straight victory, defeating Millom 26 points to 10. And if you remember, Parky, we were there for this reverse fixture beginning of the season. Millom responded from 12-0 down with tries by Connor Tyrrell and Rio Walker, the former converted by Jonty Peters. Leigh scored tries through Kai O'Brien, Ben Wharton, Jordan Hellam, while Adam Holland contributed with a try and landed 5 goals. So tries for Millom were for Connor Tyrrell and Rio Walker, and the goals came from one from Jonty Peters. Leigh East tries were Kai O'Brien, Ben Wharton, Jordan Hellam and Adam Holland, and 5 goals from the boot of Adam Holland. This puts Leigh East just 2 points behind the leaders, though, doesn't it?
Well,
they're on 14 and the top are on 16.
They're on 14. I mean, as we've said all season, it's been a right mix at the top of the division. Keighley Albion, they've
got a game in hand,
third with a game in hand.
That's all tied in, isn't it?
We talked about Myton Warriors pushing and getting in a playoff position.
Doing the same.
They've actually played 13 games, so they've only got 5 games remaining this season. So it's going to be a case of, have they done enough? I don't think so. I think there's too many other teams that are beating each other. But it certainly makes this race and this league look a lot more interesting than it has done in previous seasons, doesn't it?
To be fair, when I saw that it was the 4 in a row for Leigh East, I thought, well, where are they in the league then? And when I had a look, I thought, oh my goodness. They're still in there with the shout, aren't they? They are, and well, they're just a win or 2 away from the top, aren't they? Surprisingly so, at times. And again, this is a team that's lost 5 games this season. But fair play, it's a good win, that, if you can go up to Millom and any sort of result there, because they're a different beast on their own territory. And this was an absolutely outstanding result. So this was a battle between the bottom 2. I wonder whether I've cursed Milford, because I was really, really impressed with them. Just last week when they played against Millom, actually, I thought, with so many young players dominating, I was thinking, right, they're on for something here. I've got high hopes for the second half of the season. What do I know? Beverley 46, Milford 0. Beverley dominated in the battle of the bottom 2, securing the convincing win over Milford. Lewis Miller starred with a hat-trick of tries, while Joe Rowe, John Norman, George Cook, Conor Matthews and Tom Burnett also touched down. Ben White kicked 4 goals and George Cook added another. A late altercation then saw White and Milford's Jaden Ellis sent to the sin bin, but ultimately it wasn't to spoil a day as far as Beverley are concerned. Beverley's still bottom of the league, actually, with that win, strangely enough, winning 46 points to 0 but still being bottom of the league. Bottom line is the competitive there, aren't they, at the end of the day?
Definitely. I mean, they've really boosted the point difference, so they've now got minus 32 points, and yet they've lost 10 games this season. So Miller with a hat-trick, Joe Rowe, John Norman, Cook, Connor Matthews and Tom Burnett with the tries. 4 goals from Ben White, 1 from George Cook. So that was how all of the games finished. What about what's happening this coming weekend? We've got very much a shorter fixture list, haven't we?
We have. I think we've only got 1, 2, 3, 5 matches or so. Kicking off with, in the Premier Division, West Bowling take on Lot Lane. Thatto Heath Crusaders take on Siddal. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? Because you look on the back of our last week's result and you go, Thatto Heath against Siddal. But Thatto Heath at home, they're a different beast, and that's going to be a really, really good match, a really good game. And certainly if the weather's going to looking to be good, we know what it's like though. They get the little bit of a breeze going across, so it makes it I was being kind though. It makes it an interesting, really interesting. That is going to be a top one there. None more so than the next one though, I think, which is going to be crucial for this season.
Hold on to your hats. There's a Warrington derby on the horizon. It's coming in Division 1. Woolston Rovers against Crossfields. This one over at Woolston. That could be crucial, couldn't it?
It could, but the reverse fixture at Crossfields, Woolston won. Yeah. The end of last season and quite a few games before as well, Crossfield have always had the upper hand. So that win at the beginning of the season by Woolston at Crossfield, was looked to be a marker to a certain degree, but they certainly not kicked on. I think for Crossfields, they have got to win this to stay attached to. I'm not sure whether it is Egremont Rangers who are just above them. They've just got to keep on their coattails. Woolston, I hate to say this, but it's even if they win, it's still a very, very hard.
Well, that would take them level with Crossfields on points then.
But still, they're going to have to start. They've got to go on a run that Crossfields have done. Can they do that? Obviously, they can. I mean, it can be done. There's no ifs and buts. But the form would suggest otherwise. But this is, if there's going to be a bounce back game, this could well be it, and I'll be over there to watch this one.
I'll be interested because Woolston Rovers haven't scored many points this season. The second lowest point scorers in Division 1, so they scored 148 points in 12 matches. So my maths isn't great, but that's probably about 12.5 points average a match. They need to sort of double that, really, I feel, in the second half of the season.
It's whether they can do that or not, isn't it?
Can they do it?
Yeah.
Can they do it? Well, in Division 3, we've mentioned about the first match-up between these two sides. It's only part 2 of Milford against Beverley, this time over in Leeds though. So again, I'm wondering that, when they're playing on that 4G pitch, and the surroundings that conjures up, and the fact that they know how to play at home to Milford, I'm wondering if Beverley will, have that same impact that they've had at last weekend. It'd be an interesting one. So I'll be looking out for the result of that one too. And then this sounds like it'll be a cracker as well. Featherstone Lions at home against Keighley Albion. They've been really good at home this season, Fev Lions.
And Keighley Albion, they've been
pretty good everywhere.
They've been a surprise package, haven't they?
I don't know about surprise.
Well, they were, because we knew nothing about them at the beginning of the season, did we? We just sort of, all we could look at were sort of how they've managed in that lower divisions. They used to be in.
And what they have got there is they've got a couple of players that have played at higher level rugby, and I think that certainly shows if you can bring that level of experience coming into your club. They've got the likes of Ben Stead, he's played semi-pro for years, so he's got the know-how, and that's taking nothing away from anybody else, by the way. But again, this is sort of like saying that I still think that's going to be a cracking game.
I totally agree with you. So even though there's not many matches on, there's some good ones in there, Parker.
There is, definitely, and we'll go through them all again next week. But once again, it's been great to have your company, Steve. Thank you so much.
No problem, mate. Enjoyed it. It's been great.
And if you're at one of these matches, let us know. drop us a message on X or wherever.
Yeah, and if you've anything to sort of join in the conversation with what we've been talking about tonight, obviously, certainly from my point of view about the referee and the linesman situation, what are your thoughts on that?
And if you were barracking that referee and that linesman, shame on you.
Every tackle, every try, every scrum. Green Cooling is proud to be part of the Community Rugby League family.